Good afternoon and welcome to BW Wednesday Wisdom. Today I have with me Dr. Umakant Dash, Director of the Institute of Rural Management. Anand, thank you so much for joining me today, Dr. Dash. And I can't imagine how busy you have been and how busy these last 2 years, especially, have been on you and your institute. So I'd like to start by asking you, can you tell us a little bit about how the last 2 years have been for you?
Well, thank you very much, Daukshit, for having me in this show. It's always a pleasure to come to your show and speak to you. Well, the last couple of years, particularly if you see the pre-COVID and post-COVID, the last 2 years we have been struggling with the COVID, which affected almost all the individuals and irrespective of caste, creed, religion. I think everybody got affected. In Academic Institute, of course, it was a big challenge. We had to shift our gear from physical mode to virtual mode, and where both the faculties as well as the students, initially they had to struggle to get used to a different platform than they were used to. But I think in due course of time, both the faculty, the support of the faculty members and the support of the student, with in the last couple of 2 years, we could be able to continue delivering the education services the way we were offering. Of course, there were a lot of glitches, but at the end of the day, yes, we are quite happy the way things went, and we could be able to deliver to for maximum possible extent without without being affecting the time and without compromising the quality of the service.
Right, absolutely, and COVID has been such a drastic change to all our lives, and especially for people who are working in the cities who then have to kind of go back to the villages or to the native places. I wanted to ask, what should we do on maybe a policy level, or should something be done on a policy level to kind of help bring these people, to help the people who have had to leave employment from cities or even from other villages and return to their own places and are maybe not wanting to leave now because of the unsurety that exists after the pandemic?
Yeah, I think it's definitely a complicated question and very important question at the same time. The government has to see assess its policy at various levels. One, to ensure the livelihood of the people, and also to ensure that people do not lose their time. Because, for example, if you take academic institutions, because time is valuable and nobody wants to lose the time, because even if a month or two is a big deal for us. Of course, academic institutions could able to, it's again, I would say, blessing in disguise. So therefore, we could able to use a different platform to and optimally use for our advantage. But when it comes to the general lifestyle of the living of the people, it affected definitely to a great extent, because many people, they lost their jobs and they have to migrate back to their villages, to their hometowns. They lost jobs and they lost not only the loving ones, but also their livelihood. So at this point of time, therefore, the government has to ensure, yes, irrespective of the pandemic situation or irrespective of the situation in the country, at least some minimum assurance should be given to the households. I think now time has come where we have to think, instead of migrating to a lot of exodus to the urban areas, we have to create opportunities of employment in and around the areas that they live. Again, you will see 70% of people are staying in the rural areas, and this therefore is an opportunity to look and come up with the policies which are going to develop the rural areas. Could be in the form of cooperation. I think that's where the government is doing a big job through the Ministry of Cooperation, which was a new ministry, that's the youngest ministry, which came up a year back. They are now trying to they realize the importance of the cooperative, because here the intention is not to make profit but to help each other. Be it the livelihood, be it any other field, cooperative is definitely something which is going to help many households. So through cooperatives, they can bring employment back ensure and assure minimum livelihood to each households. And through clusters, I think the major problem in the rural areas are, you see, is mismatch between the demand and supply. Because they are informal sectors and unorganized sector, they do not get the right price for the product. Now, by forming cooperatives, it's basically bringing them to a platform where they're organized. So if they're organized, they would be able to take decision where they would be able to produce what the maximum that they can absorb and the maximum that they can sell, or the best price they get. So this is going to help in a big manner. And if there are a cluster of cooperative, not necessarily one kind, suppose if in a cluster of village, you have dairy cooperative, you have textile cooperative, you have fishery cooperative, and MSMEs. So it is going to be a self-reliant village. So the moment if you're a self-reliant village, you don't have to travel because this particular, again, in this era, there is no difference between rural and urban. All the facilities that are available in urban areas are available in the rural areas. So if you assure minimum quality of health and education, I don't think anybody would travel if they have the minimum employment facilities, etc. So government has to promote the concept of Atmanirbhar, self-reliant, and understand the value of how important and how easy it's going to be comfortable for them, and it's resilient. The entire economy is going to be resilient if they understand the importance of self-reliance.
Absolutely, and you make a good point that prices are very different when it comes to rural and urban areas, but also income is very, very different when it comes to rural and urban areas. And of course, creating the right opportunities in all these areas, because there is potential, and like you said, most of the population is also there, so it doesn't make sense to not have the same opportunities all across the board. At least the option for people to pursue those opportunities. So that being said, can you tell us a little bit about what kind of prospects are there right now in the rural areas? And how can the situation of unemployment or even disguised unemployment be tackled to kind of make people's livelihoods better?
Yeah. So one is, again, for example, encouraging the MSMEs to, open the units in the rural areas. And of course, again, you will see government is spending extensively in developing the basic facility, infrastructure facilities, because that is something very, very important. So if the villages are connected and they could be able to sell the products, bring the products to the urban areas and sell at a reasonable price without, much damage and leakages. That's, I think, therefore, one, of course, is developing and strengthening the infrastructure facilities. And again, suppose if you see through the cooperatives now, if each villages they have or cluster village, they have even the go down facilities or refrigeration facilities where the products are not they're not getting wasted quicker. So those are the infrastructure. Definitely, I must say, infrastructure is something which we have to beef up in the rural areas, so that the industries will go to the rural areas. There will be more employment opportunity in rural areas through the cluster of cooperatives. The moment that there is a cluster of cooperatives, you will see it's again a circular economy. The less the reliance on, and 70% is being leaving the rural areas. That's the major market is lying in the rural areas, right? So financial institutions will open their facilities in the rural areas, and any kind of FMCs, they will try their maximum to penetrate the rural areas. I think you will get all the facilities that we are getting in the urban areas. So somewhere we have to therefore create industry belts, and somewhere cooperation between cooperatives and corporates, because the major challenge of the cooperatives are they are dying. They're not able to sustain the competition with the corporates. So if we strengthen the cooperatives and somewhere adopt the best practices, governance practices, the corporates in the cooperatives, they will be more resilient, and you will see be it the doubling the income. Why doubling? It is going to be the tripling the income of the farmers. And then once the level of income increases, everything is going to increase, because the standard of income ultimately depends on the level of income. And once income comes, all the marketing channels will be open, and further employment will be generated in the rural areas.
Absolutely. And not just industries, because I mean, we're here to talk about education, but education institutes can also have a big impact in these areas, right? Especially we've seen over the past few years, IITs opening in tier cities, IIMs opening in tier cities. How else can education institutes and education play a role in kind of helping push development in rural areas?
Right. It's again not only just opening the centers, institutes in the rural areas, even, for example, using the virtual network, even they can have extension centers. No need to go to the rural areas, but those who are uneducated or unemployed and unemployed people, giving them the certificate courses, diploma courses through online mode, virtual mode, or the MOOC, which is now one of the sought after mode of getting trained or upskilling oneself. I think this is where we need the academic institutions, be it IITs or IIMs or any other professional institutions. They have to spend some time, energy, and resource to help upskilling the people in the rural areas by opening some extension centers or tying up with local schools or local panchayat institutions, where they will have their own networks where people can come and get trained. It could be on a regular basis or could be weekends. I think that's where. And second thing, it's not only open, creating awareness, because even today, if you go to the rural areas, many of the households, they are not aware of many of the welfare schemes which are being launched by the government. So they're not able to take advantage of the schemes that they are entitled to. So creating awareness and telling them what are they entitled to will also help the households and the rural mass to a great extent.
Yeah, no, definitely. And, speaking on policy, because, a lot of policies did come up, every time an issue comes up, policies are definitely a response. But as we know, policies need to keep changing. They need to keep being updated, even welfare schemes for that matter. I mean, they need to keep getting updated. And I think that's the issue too, right? Because anytime you get the awareness out, that there's a little bit of a change, and then that kind of puts the whole process back. That being said, what kind of policies, other than the, financial support or financial aid, could we maybe start working on, or are we working on right now to kind of help push this agenda forward?
I think even one more thing, which is part of policy, where we are generating evidences, again, we academics or the researchers are very poor, or the government is not able to make use of the evidences that are available. Suppose there are many places where there are good practices. These good practices are not, are not being disseminated, and other areas they're not able to take advantage of the good practices which help in some local. It remains localized. So I think as academic institutions, we have to help the government in collecting information and processing the data and generating as much evidence as possible, which are going to help the policymakers. If the policies are not working, then how these policies are going to be more effective? What is working? What is not working? It's not necessarily that what works in Gujarat will work in Tamil Nadu, or what works in Tamil Nadu will work in West Bengal. So the context is different, and when the context is different, the process is going to be bound to be different. So not necessarily the same shoe is going to fit everyone. So that kind of analysis and platform is needed, where the policymakers, other stakeholders, they can come and collaborate and deliberate to make the policies more workable and implemented effectively and efficiently.
Absolutely. And, it's a good point that you make about the different areas, because we see this a lot with especially food planning, like midday meal planning. Every region has the children expect different food, because it's like maybe it's regional. So you can't have no policy is easy to just kind of put as one solution fits all kind of a situation. That being said, I'm glad you spoke about the data points and stuff, because research in academics has been a big topic. And there's been a lot of discussion about how research needs to be encouraged more. There needs to be more money put into research. And while we keep saying that research is important, there's not a lot of movement being made, at least on the macro level. It's more of the micro level where teachers at universities are saying that, no, we need to do this more. Can you tell me a little bit about the kind of research you do at IRMA, and what kind of research you would like to do, and what kind of push would you like in towards research?
Yeah, as an institute, the philosophy of IRMA has been to professionalize the institutions which are working the rural areas or the vulnerable section of the society. So we have been associated with development organizations, and we have been associated with the government. I think as an institute, we have been working with almost all the state government, be it Kerala, be it Karnataka, or in the south, or be it Bihar or West Bengal or Odisha in the east, or in the north. Even we have worked with states like Uttar Pradesh, Madhya Pradesh. So we have been working closely with governments. Even recently, we are we have signed an MOU with Ministry of Panchayat Raj, where we will be working closely with them to help some of the Gram Panchayats to become model villages, and how it has to be bottom-up approach. So suppose if you take the development goals, unless the Gram Panchayats they realize the importance of all these the development goals, it's not possible to realize or accomplish the objectives which are, or the goals that are being set by the government. So it is therefore the responsibility of the institution, and we have been doing hand-holding and creating awareness in the rural areas. Because as part of our program, each student, they will be spending 2 months in a village when they take admission into our postgraduate diploma in rural management. So when they go and stay there for 2 months with village in some as a guest, they are able to understand, internalize the problem, the ecosystem of the rural areas better. So when they come back, whatever courses they do, they could be able to relate what kind of problems or what kind of solutions would be suitable or best in order to address the challenges that are being faced by the rural people. So we have been working. For example, we are working some of the farmers producer organizations, FPOs. We are handholding some of the FPOs. So our task, we have been training people, upskilling the mid-level managers and top-level managers in development sectors and government sectors. Even recently, we have trained almost 200 people from Tamil Nadu state rural officials from the Panchayat Raj, because they are which you call the street level bureaucracy. So unless the street level bureaucracy is stronger, because they are the liaison between the citizens and the top level management or the policymakers. So unless they understand the nuances of the policies, it would be very difficult to implement, because most often you will see the policy fails because of the bad implementation. The concept or the policies, conceptually, they are not bad, but more often whether it is success or failure depends on how you have implemented. So we undertake a lot of assessment studies for almost all the welfare schemes which were introduced by the government. We were partnered to various agencies to assess the welfare schemes and advise them mid-course correction, what kind of mid-course correction can be made so that it is going to pay or accomplish the set objective.
No, I mean, the practical experience, real life, that's very important. And you're absolutely right, because that's what we keep saying, right? Like, policy is great, but we'll see with the implementation. And that's where it's a nice thing to say, but it's also the scariest part, because we know that implementation is where everything kind of goes haywire, and then 10 different problems will show up. And you expect those problems, but maybe if you have more experience, we will be better able to tackle those problems, and if without that kind of exposure, it can be very difficult. And that's one thing that I think even the NAP is talking about a lot, and a lot of institutes have been saying for years that, there has to be that practical element along with the knowledge. But I mean, I can imagine that implementing a program where students have to go to villages or different areas traveling might have been difficult over the last 2 years. How did you kind of combat that?
Well, I think, of course, now it is almost, I would say, we are back to normal. 1 year of the students couldn't able to enjoy which we call the village field segment. So they had to do it online, and sometimes they were interacting with the villagers and the officials through online mode. And wherever it was possible or feasible, they were traveling. And instead of staying in the rural areas, they were just going and collecting the necessary informations, interactions, and whatever input that they were getting, they were analyzing, sitting back at home. But overall, I think, yes, it is a new experience, right? I would say it's a lifetime experience. It gave a different kind of opportunity to us as well. So even the remotest of the remote village, which otherwise would not have dared to go, we could able to connect through, say, virtual, and could able to see through the problems and challenges that they face, and what kind of solutions that are going to be prescribed to overcome the challenges. But yes, I agree with you. It was certainly a difficult time for the students, because they couldn't able to optimally use the way they should have otherwise used.
And I imagine the response, like you're saying, that now the thing about connectivity is that, it's not just that it hasn't been there, it's been there, but we're getting better response from all these areas a lot more. And I imagine that must have been a big game changer for your institute, and as far as data is concerned, as far as research is concerned, as far as information sharing is concerned.
I agree. And one of the advantage of an institute like IRMA is because we have always been believing in the multidisciplinary approach, which now the NEP is emphasizing on. So it's the perspective. What is important is, unless you see the overall perspective of a particular issue, you can't appreciate the problem, or you can't understand the problem, and the solution that you are, or recommendation that you're going to make, is not going to achieve what it should otherwise do. So all our courses and programs are interdisciplinary in nature, and to great extent multidisciplinary, so that you can do a 360-degree analysis, critical analysis. Because unless you do a 360-degree analysis, it would be very difficult to understand and to make any policy recommendations. So appreciation is going to come only when you adopt a multidisciplinary approach, particularly in issues related to the rural areas.
Actually, since we're on the topic of NEP, there is also a whole discussion about regional languages, and I know that's more for technical studies. But do you have any take or any perspective on introducing education in regional languages? I mean, how would that kind of impact the kind of education you're doing? How do you make sure students are on the same level and can kind of work together? Do you have a perspective on that?
Yeah, yes. Again, when we talk about teaching the pedagogy being in the vernacular languages, it's definitely something which is very good, because many times you'll see, most of the time we see 20-25 students of the batch, they are reluctant or hesitant to participate in the deliberation process. And the reason being, they are not comfortable in English. Right? They keep themselves away from the mainstream because they're not comfortable. It's not that they do not understand. It's not that they don't think. They think, but then they don't know how to.
Everything can be communicated in English, I imagine. Like if you're talking about real life issues that everyone is facing, and you're trying to find out what the problems are of different regions, it can't be communicated in a different language, I think.
Sometimes. Yeah. So even understanding, so if they study, they read, and they see in their own languages, the perception capacity, it also gets goes up, so they can easily understand a particular problem which they have to read 5 times if it is in a different language. So that barrier definitely is going to can be avoided if the medium of instruction is in their local language. So that option should always be given. So that those who want to read in their language, they can always be encouraged to do so, and those who want to do in English, that always is there, of course.
Right, of course. Another thing that has been like a big discussion right now is sustainability. Because anytime any new project wants to get started, the sustainable angle needs to be explored, and especially if we're talking about any kind of development or changes in rural areas, sustainability is a really big element of that. So how can we ensure sustainability while also kind of going into developing certain areas and changing livelihoods?
Right. I think I'll give the example of the CSR funds. Now that's even, I think the last the change in the act, they brought the sustainability while analyzing the performance. Now what happens is because be it the CSR fund or be it anything, unless we encourage sustainability, because it's not possible for the government to give you subsidy forever. We need to understand that the capacity of the government is also limited, and with limited fund, they have to say meet as say demands are unlimited. In generally in economics we say. So for any government expecting a subsidy or some kind of support forever is difficult. So whenever they are investing the money in whichever form and wherever. So suppose if we do not bother about the sustainability, what would happen is the moment that the subsidy is withdrawn or the CSR fund is withdrawn, the project is going to cease to exist. It will die out its natural death. Or it's also not possible for the government or for the organizations to keep funding to the same institute, because what happens is it becomes a skewed distribution of the resources. So if we want, it's like even in investment, corporate investment, unless the ROI is there, I don't think any corporate is going to undertake the investment. So we have to expand, re-energize the system. We have to ensure that we get the return that we are investing. So same is the case, be it the government fund or be it the private fund, that it makes no difference. So unless there is a ROI and unless there is it's sustainable, then it's difficult, because given the limited resources, it would be difficult to scale it up or to expand or to go to different areas and address other issues, because issues are, say, multi-dimensional and varied. So we have to, it's not that we cannot address all the issues at the same time. So we have to, therefore, if it is sustainable, then you can move to address, go to other areas and address other challenges, issues. It becomes easier for the society as a whole.
Yeah, we know you're right. There are multiple issues. And anytime there's one solution, that always, produce other things. It's an ongoing effect. So let me ask you, what would be in your opinion, what is the need of the hour when it comes to rural development and management?
Again, see, there is a difference between growth and development, because now what we are seeing, the growth is K-shaped. The difference between haves and have-nots are widening, because the benefit of the growth is not percolating down. It could be again because the bottom, the strata of the society, they are not aware of, or they are not aware of the entitlements, or they are not able to take advantage of the opportunities that they are getting. So unless it is a balanced development, it would be difficult for an economy to sustain the growth, because growth, it is not possible for any economy, for whatever be the reason. You can say achieve growing at the rate of 7%, 8%, 9% forever. So even the best of the best economy, you would see they're struggling to grow at the rate of 3%, because again, which we call the depreciation is going to increase, and therefore you need more money to sustain the kind of capital that we are pumping in, or that we have pumped in the past. So development is therefore more important than growth, and it has to be a balanced development, so that at least the equity is going to be lesser, and people don't feel like they are left out from the development process.
Absolutely. And, you did mention, we've been talking a lot about the issues and challenges. So just to change the conversation a little bit, can you share some positive stories, like good developments that you've seen over the last few months or years? Any current projects you're working on and the impact you're hoping to have with them?
Yeah, well, one which we have working is, again, my research area is in the health financing. So we are doing a lot of research on social health insurance. The Prime Minister's Janara PMJAY. Which we have even recently we have completed our work for the state of Uttar Pradesh, the assessment of the PMJAY, how it is performing and why it is the uptake is not very high compared to what it should have been. Because even today, people are going to the private hospitals and they are spending huge out-of-pocket expenditure, and the catastrophic effect of such expenditure is very high. So we could able to find out. We in fact we did a survey to 4,000 households and spoke to them in depth about their awareness, whether they're aware of the features of the scheme, if they have used, why they have used, if they did not use when they wanted, why they did not use. So we could able to come out with issues which are systemic in nature, the issues which are due to bad implementations, or the challenges in the process of implementations. So the moment you identify and then you communicate the challenges, issues to the government, of course it has to be scientific and robust. If they do nowadays, the gap between the government and the researchers has narrowed down. It's not that they at least if they interact, engage with the researchers, they try to find out what are the problems, how to make the process more productive, effective. So a couple of things which we suggested, which they have taken care, and now gradual, say, uptake, it has gone up, slightly gone. It's not that overnight it would change, but then you can bring at least some marginal changes, and which is definitely encouraging for the researchers, for the institutes, academic institutions. When you see your research work is being acknowledged, your research work is being used for implementation, for let's say overcoming the challenges, the challenges in the system.
Oh, no, thank you for sharing that. Actually, a question has come up, and I think this is a very relevant question. And usually I save audience questions till the end, but I think we can add this in right now. Shri Krishna Mahajan ji is asking, how can higher education institutes enhance the range of rural engagement in mass education in line with the NAP 2020?
So again, say by engagement, when we say, of course, as I told you, say IRMA, our students, they go and stay 2 months in the rural areas, and when they go in many places, wherever they stay for 2 months, they take care of, say, for example, be it education, or be it some of other issues, local issues. They engage with the local people and not only create awareness about the different schemes that are available, and even they spend time. For example, those who are good at say science or math or English, they spend time with the village kids, 1 hour, 2 hours, or weekends. So that it's basically how are we going to motivate them? Because the major thing is, once they're motivated and once they get the spark and get say interest, they will find mechanisms and ways to come to the mainstream. So one is opportunity, and second is the involvement and engage, the encouragement. So as academic institutions, our role would be to act as enabler. Wherever possible, bring the government and bring the citizens as close as possible, communicate the problem of the citizens to the government, and communicate back the policies or the thinking of the government to the citizens. So we have to play an active role. It can't be passive. And just doing research and publishing papers will not help the society. So somewhere we have to practice it. We have to actively engage in the development process. So this is once we are involved, you'll see it's going to the positive effect you will able to see. And again, a new education policy, because multidisciplinary approach that the government has giving more emphasis. So again, to bring the critical and say how the issues are going to be critically analyzed from all the perspective, right? Because all the issues are not are interlinked. When you want to address one issue, you will see it escalates the other issues, right? So how are we going to optimally, because social issues are entirely different from other issues, political issues or scientific issues related to scientific research. So we have to be gentle, we have to be patient, and we have to be, say, consistently as perseverance. I would say perseverance is what is going to pay off at the end of the day.
Thank you. I think consistency is also really important because, I mean, only from my personal experience, I think is if I don't know what kind of, attitude my institution had, what kind of behavior and habits my institution have, what kind of support they give the students before me, what kind of support my seniors have gotten, I don't know what to expect. I don't know what to ask for. I don't know how much support I'm going to get or what opportunities I can kind of go after. So that consistency is definitely something that, at least I remember something that can definitely go a long way in ensuring that students are very much engaged and also like looking for realistic, practical solutions to to current problems, and not just, like you said, writing papers. Because you're right, research papers can look good, but if they're not solving an immediate issue or something that can be an immediate issue, ultimately they'll just remain a research paper and not something that can further steps can be taken on. So this was the thing about higher education institutes. And we've talked a lot about also what government can do and what policies can do. I want to ask you now, what can IRMA do to kind of help tackle especially issues related to rural employment and mobilization of rural like human capital?
Now again, here I would say we are involved in three-pronged strategy. One, working with the government. For example, we are again part of a project where the government is planning to come up with a cluster of villages, which is going to be, again, as I told you, to make the villages self-reliant. So that's where we are working with the government, bringing the government projects to the rural areas and see how effectively it is going to be analyzed. And second, where we are involved in the assessment of the different social schemes and the government schemes, and communicating back what works and what factors are responsible if it is successful, and what factors are detrimental in the implementation process. The second, we are organizing. Even recently, we have started startup and encouraging the social enterprises through our incubation center. So we are encouraging people from the rural areas or entrepreneurs from the rural areas to come and use the facilities, and we also give them all the handholding and counseling and connecting it with the funding agencies, with the other policymakers, so that even 20%, 25% of the social enterprises that are being incubated are successful, which addresses the local problems. Because when we talk about the social enterprises, I think most of these projects, they are trying to address. Sometimes it is related to water, sometimes it is related to conservation of environment conservation, sometimes it is related to harvesting, sometimes it is related to how to preserve the agriculture products. So often you'll see, even if 20-25% is succeed, then it's going to give a lot of at least some kind of benefit back to the society. And third, of course, as an education institute, always we encourage people from rural areas to come and register with us. Even the last time we gave additional weightage to the students who are from the aspiration district, because somewhere some discount has to be given, some encouragement has to be given, some motivation we have to motivate, so that they can come to the mainstream. So in these kind of ways, we are at least trying our best to help the people who are in need in the rural areas, and promote, not to make the society sustainable, and to ensure that, or at least to, of course, it's not possible with one institution, that how there will be less equitable distribution of the resources in the rural areas. So those are the things which you always will try.
Thank you. And I just have one more question to ask you, which is basically, given all these new developments, a lot of universities are hearing about all these new management courses, online courses, hybrid courses going on. Do you have any new courses that you're going to be starting, or that you've already started, or new programs that you're launching that you can share with us?
No, actually, we have the distance learning programs. The Institute has not thought of, or in the past we have not done. But Of late, we have started some certificate courses on distance mode, but it's on virtual mode. We are undertaking a lot of training programs for the development sector, or development sectors and government employees. And soon we may even say introduce some diploma courses and certificate courses for the general mass, so that those who are say left out because of various reasons, they can register and earn a certificate diploma, which is going to make them employable.
No, thank you. I think we've all learned that distance courses can definitely be very beneficial to people living in different areas of India. So thank you so much for sharing that. Just going to ask you for any final comments or closing comments you would like to share with us before we wrap this up.
The question is to me.
Yes, I'm just asking, do you have any final thoughts?
I think I must appreciate Business World for providing this kind of platform where we are sharing our opinions, thoughts, and experiences to our peers, to our young generation. So basically, that is definitely something which I say appreciate, and I'm sure I urge other channels to undertake this kind of exercises, so that there will be more engagements. Because sometimes these engagements are help not only, it's not like help them, but also it helps us to know the problems that they are facing, so that optimal solution can be thought of and necessary changes can be made in our processes, so that more people are going to get benefited.
We are also very thankful for you to come out and take time to speak with us. I mean, we really enjoy these kinds of conversations, especially candid ones where people can kind of come and speak and tell us their thoughts and views, because, there's only so much information you can get out of from the news and media and announcements. So thank you so much for taking time out and speaking with us today. And thank you for the audience members who joined in, and for the people who asked questions. And anyone who wants to rewatch this conversation, it's available on all of our social media sites, Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube, as well as the BW Education website. Thank you, Dr. Das, and I hope you have a great afternoon and a great week ahead of you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.